Yes, final presentation for today. Uliana Strizhak, parallel text database, Japanese, English, Russian, as a research resource for studying agency in Japanese.
Yes, hello, dear colleagues. Thank you very much for such opportunity to present the result of my study by online. Is it okay with my presentation and with the sound? Yes? Do you hear me? Is it? Okay, thank you very much. Okay. So my topic is about parallel text database as a research resource for studying agency. Agency today I use like an example of the linguistic unit. So it could be considered, I hope, in terms of studying any linguistic unit, and agency today is just an example. So today's paper outlines the issue of the recent tendency of studying different linguistic units, in our case agency, cognitively. Which means considering the mental imagery, the conceptual interface between syntax and semantics, and the relationship between language and thought, and so on and so on. That is cognitive grammar. In case of studying agency, it means that English and Russian languages describe events, both intentional or accidental, using more agentive language than Japanese language, which goes back to their discrepancies in their worldviews. Agency itself considered to be a rather universal feature of human being, such a feature of human being, to affect others, to make others be changed, something like this. But there is the other point of view, that the agency is ruled, is guided by the social, ethnic patterns, cultural patterns, and linguistic patterns, and so on. Therefore, the problem of agency is central to study human identity and personhood. The results of the present study show evidence that human agency could be considered through the linguistic agency, even though it's rather difficult to equate social agency with grammatical agency. So our paper employs qualitative methods and quantitative methods, analysis of parallel text database, to examine how high agentive and low agentive semantic roles are used to construct a hierarchy in Japanese language and culture in comparison with English and Russian. So for this purpose, we have constructed the database. The parallel corpora and the principles of creation our database are as follows. So we have here the original units in Russian from texts of Dostoevsky, Chekhov, Tolstoy, Bulgakov, and modern fiction as well. Ulitskaya, Tolstaya, and so on, Pelevin. So original Russian units and their Japanese equivalents. Both constituents, original, so it looks like this. So it's the outline of the corpus, of the corpora itself. High and low agency. Both constituents, original text and its equivalency, Japanese or English equivalents, are annotated with several characteristics, divided into basic features and additional features. And we have the weight of the price of each feature. For example, the predicate type, it's of course a basic feature due to its dominant role in the sentence structure. And from the other side, low agentive structure, we have, for example, additional actor here. If you compare, you can see that in Russian and in English, mother's letter tortured the human. But in Japanese, in two cases, we have two different ways to make agency lower. I mean, in the first case, low agentive structure is adjective predicate. So, kurusikatta, adjective, it's much more low agentive structure. Or the second case, additional actor. It's a very interesting thing in Japanese language that we discovered. This letter tortured not the human itself, but his heart. Kokoro o hidoku kurushimeta. Kokoro, not human itself, but his heart, but his kokoro. And this additional feature, we put it in our corpus, we marked it as feature, and this feature has its price, its weight, to make agency lower in Japanese language. So this additional actor is an additional feature showing the necessity to share the responsibility and action focus between several actors in Japanese language, because Japanese language requires less agency to be linguistically represented. So what could be extracted from such a database, and what could be accounted for in the analysis of agency? So here we have the answer that, here is the answer. Sorry. I'll explain it a bit. So the parallel corpora analysis reveals asymmetry in different languages requirements for the semantic roles occupied by participants in the sentence structures, and shows us how human relations with the surrounding reality are constructed in the narrated events by illuminating their agentive status. A key finding is that structures encoded in language are functioning as the mirror of our world structure. Explicit and implicit human agents are grammatically positioning themselves to highlight their different ways of being in different cultures. So using syntactic models, using syntactic roles and semantic roles on the big data, in the big data analysis, several thousands of units, we can describe the inner world of a person and to give a linguistically based and image-oriented answer to the key question, for example, of Dostoevsky texts. Is the voice of Rodion Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment, is his voice, for example, haunted and stifled by external forces and events? Or their behavior, so Raskolnikov killed, here their behavior and actions are ruled by person's internal thoughts and beliefs. And the linguistic answer is that Japanese vision of Dostoevsky's idea of great man, of extraordinary man, phenomena is much more low agentive. Japanese vision is much more low agentive in terms of external forces. So here in this diagram, we have different colors. So what does it mean? What do they mean, all these colors? So number 7 is human here in the diagram. But the most interesting thing is that in original units, there was no human at all. In Russian texts, original units were extracted such original units where the agent was external force. But Japanese people, more than half Japanese equivalences shows us that not external force is responsible, the human is responsible. So the large orange colors is human. They appeared from nowhere. There was no human in Dostoevsky text here in these extracted units, but we have human in Japanese vision as a center of the world. It's a very difficult, very maybe such not clear idea how to explain it, but it's a very interesting point to continue my study, and I'll, for example, I would like in the next studies to find what kind of external forces are good for Japanese, and what kind of external forces are not good for Japanese. And for example, the only external forces I found here was nature. So nature in Japanese vision could affect human, his being, his life, his behavior. But such kind of, for example, behavior of subjects, for example, letter, cannot affect. So it's the point for the following discussions, and I would like to move on to the end of my presentation, and would like to underline once again that our study demonstrated the significance of systematic digitization of our research materials to find the new methods of language analysis using the big data analysis. And furthermore, we could enlighten the important role of the implementation of quantitative methodologies in database linguistic analysis, and later on we can use them in our Japanese language teaching. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Okay, any questions, comments here or online? No questions, right? Well, let me ask, when you mark various items as high or low, or any degree, right? How is it objective, or I mean, how objective is it, or how subjective is it? I mean, for this analysis, I understand the big data one. Big data is fine, right? It's the only way to do it, right? But for this marking various items, right? So how do you decide, basically, based on what criteria? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very interesting and very difficult question, of course. So for ranging, I used two things: agent and predicate. And I mean, I examined the agency of agent and the level of agency of predicate. And in case of predicate, I can show maybe these examples. So when we marked the predicate type from high agentive to low agentive, I use the nature of the verb and the nature of the linguistic nature of predicate. The most high agentive predicates are causative verbs, saseru, seru, saseru in Japanese language. The next one, the second one, in terms of high agency, is transitive verbs, because in transitivity, we have some affection on others. Then it's intransitive verbs, the next one, more lower agency. Then we have adjectives, then we have nouns, and then we have passive voice as zero agency, because in passive voice, the agent changed his status. So to examine the agency of predicate, I use the linguistic nature of predicate. I mean, how transitive is it? How causative is it? And as a result, how big is the effect of agent in this sentence? And in case of agents, subjects, it's also, we have some hierarchy here. I mean, human is the prototype of human is, the prototype of agent. Prototype agent is a human as the most high agentive person. Human can affect other people easily. human can change the surrounding world easily. But, for example, subjects or nature or behavior of other people, like letter, like, for example, smile. Her smile tortured me. She smiled to another man, and it tortured me. In this case, so it's another kind of agents: human psychology subjects, human physical subjects, nature, things itself, or some situations that may torture me, and so on. So here we make these ranges from 1, which is thing, to 7, which is human. Such kind of hierarchy. It's our own idea, but this idea was discussed during my interview with Japanese experts. Japanese translation of Russian texts like Kameyama sensei, Numano Mitsuyoshi sensei, Numano Kyoko sensei, and so on. So it was a kind of interview during which we together constructed this hierarchy of agents and this hierarchy of predicates. And using Spearman-Wren correlation, we somehow tried to construct this relationship scheme, and we have found it, so that human is the most Japanese way to communicate with surrounding reality, something like this. Does it make sense?
Yes, it's much more clear now. Okay, thank you. Well, it appears to be a very useful resource for translation studies, for comparing different translations, how translators make choices, and so on. So, and just one brief question, one more question: is your database, is it open, or is it just for your own research? It's open for everybody.
Thank you for your question. Yes, I would like to make it open, but the problem is that this database, this corpus, this data are not automatically extracted. Were not automatically extracted from the text. All these data, thousands of units, were collected manually. And now I would like to, I'm in the process of somehow clearing this corpus and to show it for other people to join our study of human C or some other linguistic units which could be found in such kind of parallel corpora. So it's in the plans, not now.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions maybe? Any questions online? No. Well, we're out of time, it seems. Yes. So let's stop here, I guess. Thank you again, everybody. And that's it for today, it seems, right? Yes. Thank you, and let's stop. Okay. Good.
We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, and that's it for today.